Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. How's it going out there? Happy Monday in this collapsing, dwindling, slowly decomposing empire. It's good to see y'all. As you can see, I've got a little new background because I'm getting lead paint taken out of out of the other part of my studio. So yeah, I mean, luckily I haven't been licking the walls too much. I do at times. Sometimes it's just a coping mechanism, but occasionally I'll lick the walls. Anyway, so yeah, instead I'm just sitting here in this room. But hello to everybody. Hope you're hanging in there. Got a lot to talk about today. I hope you enjoy the book selection behind me as well. And you can see my one telly there that we won. I think we won that before all. It was like 1 year before all American award shows and anything that might be connected to TV or Hollywood or anything realized that we were not to be spoken to at Redacted tonight. So no, we won it for Redacted tonight. Thank you. Mick Yosho in the chat asked if I won it for Law and Order SVU. No, my 2 sentences on Law and Order SVU unfortunately did not win a telly back when I was 24 years old. But we got a lot to talk about. We're gonna dig in a little more into the tariffs. What's going on there? Just a little bit because I have covered a lot. We're gonna get into more on the Syrian chemical weapons hoax because more info is coming out on that. We're going to get into Israel, more signs that they're getting ready to complete the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So much coming at you. Please click thumbs up, click share. You guys make this show possible. And please welcome to the show my friend and yours, Jafar Khan.
I did not know you were on Law and Order SVU.
I think it's my only claim to fame. That's it.
I never know that you were a part of the pinnacle of American culture.
I know, absolutely. I had a solid 2 sentences.
What were the sentences? Do you remember?
They like they like pulled me over my car and put a gun to my head, which is always a good plan when you're pulling over a 24-year-old who I don't know. Yeah. And they say like, you know, something like, whose car is this? Because they realize I'm not their guy. And I say, oh, it's my friend's car. Mm-hmm. And then they say, like, we tracked your phone. And I say, oh, he let me borrow his phone, too. Because that's believable.
You know, I'll make this quick, not to, we'll get into everything, but like.
No, I want to stick on this for the next hour. This is it.
I'm a really bad actor. I've set in tapes. I've not gotten a single role. And so me and Kelly will play this game. Like, we'll see, like, someone on a show do like a very like what you just described, like a minor, like 2 lines, and Kelly would be like, Joffrey, do you think you could do that? And I'll tell you, yours, I could not do that. That requires real acting. Like, there's a gun to your head. I literally could not do that. So I'm impressed.
Hold on a second. Sorry, thought maybe someone was locked out or something. Anyway. Okay. This show has started weird and it just keeps getting weirder.
Yeah, no, we can move on from the Law and Order stuff. Good to be here is what I meant to say.
Good to be here. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So I've talked about this a little bit, but the tariff thing keeps evolving. Trump is now, so China's jacked up their tariffs, but has said they're not going to jack it up any further. They've said it's at 125% on U.S. goods, which should have been expected. This, of course, has caused crazy haywire up and downs on the stock market. The U.S. dollar is being viewed as very unstable, currency now. And but China says, these tariffs at 125% make it so that no American product in China is really feasible anymore. So we're not going to raise it anymore because it's done. It's like your products are not going to be bought in China anymore. And I'll get more in a second, but I've been getting into the root cause of this tariff fluctuate, like what exactly Trump is trying to do, which almost no one is really talking about because the American government doesn't want to talk about it. But are you excited to pay, roughly 5 or 10 times as much for everything that you buy, Jaffer?
I can't wait. I was born to consume. So if you make it a little bit harder, I'll just accept the challenge.
Yeah, so Trump's tariffs on China are now 145%. Oh, sorry, I lost Joffer. But he also put tariffs on an island that only has penguins, which, you know, fucking penguins, man. It's about time they got off their high horse. This has caused, over 10 days, caused a $10 trillion market swing on the stock market. Trump did the most public insider trading I think I've ever seen. Because before he went back on almost all of his tariffs, he still has them on China, but he went back on almost all the others. But the day before that, or maybe hours before that, he said, now's a great time to buy. Then after he went back, the markets that had lost $9 trillion got back about $7 trillion of that. People who bet on the money coming back made a lot of money. And then there's a kind of, like, he knows he's mic'd, so it's not like it leaked, but kind of an off, like a candid remark where he's standing there with, I don't remember who, a couple other billionaires, and he jokes that, hey, my friend here made $1 billion on the stock market yesterday. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, yeah, because you tweeted out that everyone should buy, and then you, like, it was the most public insider trading I think anyone's ever seen.
I think that's Trump's whole thing. Not his whole thing, but I think he like enjoys to test the waters of what crimes he can openly get away with. You know, we saw a lot of the first administration. He was sort of testing the waters of what he's doing now, like outright illegal stuff. So I think similarly, he was kind of like, I just did this. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of it is normalizing stuff that is
Yes,
incredibly illegal, incredibly immoral. I mean, they're trying to normalize genocide clearly right now. There's definitely a lot of that going on. So yeah, he's kept the tariffs on China except for on certain products. So he is now. So not only did he go back on his tariffs on 99% of the world's countries, he now has exempted phones, computers, and electronics from these tariffs, which is a lot of what China ships to the United States. So he's gone back on the things that are the biggest things that that China ships to the United States. And Ben Norton had a good post on this. He said, Trump's trade war has already failed. Trump panicked, knowing the tariffs would unleash inflation or really worse, depression. So he's gone back on phones, computers, semiconductors, other electronics. These are China's biggest exports. And here's a chart of everything that China ships to the United States. And like over half of it, or about half of it, is the things Trump exempted. So he went back on just about everything except for the other 50% of stuff that China ships to the United States. But as we've said, and you know, we don't need to keep beating a dead horse, as they say, but all these prices are just going to be dropped onto Americans. I mean, it's going to land on all of our heads. It's just, yeah. I mean, here's the positive. We consume way too much. We're killing the world with the amount of consumption that Americans are involved in.
And that's what Trump is trying to fix, this horrible consumer culture we have.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I had totally forgotten that Trump is trying to decrease American consumerism because it is just totally ripping up the environmental world around us, shredding it, eating it, and shitting it out. And Trump has decided it is his mission to decrease consumerism, and this will do it. I think
Trump's like, when was the last time you went outside just for a walk with your loved ones?
Dude,
that's what Trump is saying.
He keeps saying that. He keeps saying, just take a walk, love your family. Like, stop with all the competition and the beating each other up and hatred.
Yeah.
He's all about love, that guy.
You don't need all these products. You don't need all these manufactured goods. You know, you just need each other.
Thank you, Jay Blue, for supporting the show. That means a lot. Your super chats, everybody, do make a difference. They really do. So please, if you want to throw a couple in there, that'd be amazing. But so I want to just, and I've discussed it some already, so I don't want to go over and over it. But there is the heart of what's going on here that almost no one is talking about. It's like Ben Norton and a couple of economists. Like, there's almost no one talking about what is actually at the root of this tariff war that Trump initiated. It does seem like he's going to go through with it to some degree. This is a 90-day pause. He probably will still increase tariffs on a lot of countries, et cetera. So why is it? Because you look at that and you go, look, Trump's an idiot. He's got some sort of dwarf hamsters as economic advisors. Yes. But he also likes being loved by Americans. He likes to brag about, the economy is doing amazing. Oh, my God, this is the best economy we've ever seen. He loves that shit. So why would he tank the economy? Well, it comes down to the fact that the world is de-dollarizing. The U.S. is the global reserve currency. The amount of the world that has been using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency has decreased heavily over the past several years. It is based on it being the petrodollar, which hopefully petroleum use keeps going down and down and down. All of these things, and also the fact that the world has just realized that the United States is a bloodthirsty monster. But all these things have decreased the use of the U.S. dollar. If the U.S. dollar is not the global reserve currency, the U.S. can't print an endless amount of money. We can't have $1 trillion military budget. There is so much that the U.S. can't do if we aren't the global reserve currency. So there's not an easy answer to this. The answers are realize you're a dwindling empire and come up with a cooperative way to work with other countries and to get through this and to stop trying to dominate the globe. That's one way. And, Trump talks about that all the time too. He does. Yeah. The other way is to look at all the other countries and say, you motherfuckers, you're just eating off of, you're just parasites off of our wonderful global reserve currency. So give us lots of money. And which one do you think Trump has chosen? So this tariff war that he started to initiate, backed off some, probably will restart again, continue down this path. It has to do with, and one of his head economic advisors, Stephen Moran, which I'm glad Ben Norton found this speech, gave a speech about this to kind of insiders, not really publicly. And he also wrote a paper about it. And it basically says that the U.S. is trying to rewrite the global economic system, which was basically written largely by the U.S. in the 1940s and 50s at Bretton Woods, where we said, hey, we'll be the global reserve currency. At that time, we were like a third of all GDP in the world. So we said that. Eventually, 20 years later, we get off the gold. The U.S. currency no longer is gold-backed. So it's just the dollar. You're just supposed to believe in it. You're just supposed to have faith like a religion. Yes. You're just supposed to pray to it. But now we're kind of screwed as everyone de-dollarizes. And so the answer that Trump and his goons have come up with is to just yell at every other country, you agree to whatever we're telling you to send us money or else. Or else we're going to jack up your tariffs.
We're going to punish you.
We're going to punish you with crazy tariffs. We're going to punish you in other ways. He said that the BRICS nations will have 100% tariffs. And so that's the heart of all of this. And yet it cannot be mentioned on your mainstream media. No one, a lot of indie media, I think, doesn't understand it. And then mainstream media, it's like forbidden to ever say. Occasionally you'll hear Trump say global reserve currency, but it is forbidden to ever say petrodollar. It is forbidden to talk about the heart of what's going on here.
It seems like and this is not my forte, all this finance stuff, but it seems like
Acting is.
Yeah. It just seems like not such a bad idea because like China is like so self-sustainable and with all their manufacturing sectors, and we are the ones who are not self-sustainable. And it just seems like, yeah, all these countries will just rely on China.
Yeah, that's a great point. That like of
Right?
the
Am I
two,
wrong? I mean, I don't really, like I said, it's not my forte, but it just seems like such a not that I'm shocked that Trump's plan is like doesn't have much foresight, but seems dumb. Is what I'm saying over
yeah,
here.
but you're right that most people are like, well, the China can get by without the U.S. Like we're only 14% of China's imports, and it's been going down every year. So
Mm.
China can get by without the U.S. The U.S. cannot really, at this moment, get by without China. Like we need their semiconductors, we need their rare earth minerals, and that's another reason. Which I said this before. This is another reason that they want that Trump and the goons want to steal Denmark, because they need more rare earth minerals. They think they can get some of them in Denmark. Sorry, not Denmark, but Greenland, which is part of Denmark. And that's also the deal they were going to strike with Ukraine was like $500 billion in rare
Mm.
earth minerals. So,
Damn. Yeah. It all, it's never changed, like what is the I know there was the name of a book, The End of History, but beyond that specific book, like we really tend to think that like, history was back then, now we're in the modern times, but it's always just been like empire scrambling for resources, and it's still the
yeah.
exact same thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Big John over on Rumble, rumble.com/Lee Camp. Donated to the show. Really appreciate it. He says your resting name would be Lee the Real Deal Camp. Oh, wrestling name. Resting name. Really the Real Deal Camp. I appreciate that, John. Thanks a lot. So here's, I'm just going to touch on this for a second. Maybe once I read the book, I'll have more to say about it. But you guys may recall, so this book just came out, and you guys may recall that and actually, I'll have a segue. I keep cutting myself off. I'll have a segue to this story, but I want to introduce it first. Then I'll tell you what the segue was from the last story.
So this is the preview to the segue.
It's the preview to the segue for the next story. Yeah, you guys are getting behind the scenes. You guys remember the Syrian chemical weapons hoax, which helped us to obliterate Syria, put 94% of all their people under the poverty line, just absolutely destroy their society. It was these two or three moments where we said, oh, Assad used chemical weapons. And yet we saw, as people actually were able to start doing some investigation, that it was all bullshit. There were 4 separate whistleblowers at the OPCW, which is the global organization for chemical weapons. And they said that their findings were changed, that the OPCW was, trying to cover it up, that this was not an Assad chemical weapons attack. And anyway, one of them, the main one, has now put out a book. By the way, they were all like fired or pushed out as they said that.
And the organization is like disbanded now, right? Or something major happened to it, right?
I didn't follow that. Did it disband?
I'm probably wrong.
I mean, I know
maybe it was defunded or something.
I know it lost all of its credibility, so maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, I noticed that he came out with this book. It's called The Serious Scam, an insider look into chemical weapons, geopolitics, and the fog of war. And he went by Inspector A, because when they write these reports, I think their names are intentionally not on them, so they can't be pressured. But I think his real name's Ian Henderson or something. Anyway, he has put out a book on the fact that this was a scam. He says I'll have to read the book, obviously, but he says in the subtitle there, The Fog of War. To me, this was no fog of war. To me, this was a carefully set up plot so that the United States and other countries, Britain specifically, could begin more clearly bombing Syria, more clearly attacking Syria with sanctions, etc.
Red line.
Yeah, the big red line that Obama announced. And anyway, so here's the segue that comes at the end of the segment. This is a new thing I'm doing. I give the segue at the end of the segment. We just discussed how this first topic, the tariff war, has actually at the heart of it to do with the U.S. global reserve currency. Well, our destruction of Syria has a lot to do with the global reserve currency. Syria, and yeah, it has a lot to do with Israel as well, but Syria is one of the few countries that both has or had a lot of oil and was outside or eventually dropped the dollar in oil proceedings. So, and I think they dropped the dollar in the 90s, like 96 or something. And so if the US were to keep, in order for the US to keep the petrodollar strong, you can't have tons of oil being shipped around the world outside of dollars. If that happens, your dollar becomes meaningless, at least as a global reserve currency. So they needed all of the oil to continue to be shipped under dollars. In order to do that, they had to basically destroy the societies of countries with a lot of oil outside the dollar. Well, which ones are those? Let's see. Syria, Iraq, Libya. Any of these sound familiar? And Iran and Venezuela are the other big ones. And so of the two that still remain, at least in the way they remain existent in the way they were 10 and 20 years ago, do we view them positively, Iran and Venezuela? Do we seem to have some sort of bizarre hatred of them as if they slept with our girlfriend or something?
All countries that were coincidentally starved of democracy and was really craving it.
Yes, and so we dropped a little bit of democracy on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there's a connection here between this scam, chemical weapons scam in Syria, and what Trump is doing right now with tariffs. And I have yet to hear anyone make that connection, but because you're not allowed to talk about this stuff. I mean, it might be one of the reasons that I'm ridiculously suppressed. But
yeah.
Okay. We're gonna get to Israel here in a second, but just want to touch on this. There was and thank you guys for leaving comments, giving the thumbs up. Those all make a difference. But there was Russia struck Ukraine. Striked would be if they like took down the lights and the cameras and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they bombed Syria, and CNN had a blaring news headline of Russia strikes northeastern Ukraine, 24 people dead, 1 child. And obviously those are bad things. I wish those didn't happen. Could you imagine if CNN did a blaring headline like that?
Yeah.
Every time Israel killed a child?
Yeah.
It would be like every 8 seconds. Like CNN would have to have headlines within headlines. They have to interrupt headlines to have more headlines that Israel killed more children.
Yeah.
And this shows this shows how our mainstream media works. It has to completely care so much about those dying in Ukraine, care absolutely zero about those dying in Russia or about the Russians that were killed by Ukrainians before 2022. And they have to basically care almost not at all about Gazans, about children in Gaza that are killed on a daily basis. So, yeah, Wendy in the comments says it's 100 kids a day on average. That sounds about right to me. It's 50,000 people, but over 45%, maybe closer to 50% of those are children that have been murdered by Israel. And that's just the bombs. That's not talking famine and disease. And yet, this is the difference between how our media deals with one people and another.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter pointed out that like Israel just bombed Gaza's, I forget the name, but it's like a Baptist hospital. And they pointed out that it was one of the same hospitals that in the beginning of the bombing that the mainstream media was like doing backflips on. One, first trying to say that, oh, Israel didn't bomb it, Hamas bombed it, and then being like, oh, well, Hamas was in there, just trying to defend that Israel would never just bold-facedly bomb a hospital. And now, like a year and a half later, the same hospital is bombed, and the media they just won't bring it up.
Well, yeah, because in those first days, it was like the first couple of weeks after October 7th, the first hospital was bombed by Israel, and Israel tried to claim that it was an accidental firing, that Hamas had like fired on themselves.
Yeah.
And now they don't even bother, like, because since then they've bombed like 50 hospitals or something, like an endless number of hospitals.
You don't even see the argument of like Hamas was hiding there anymore. Like that argument's not even used anymore. Now it's just like we know what they're doing and we're just okay with it.
Yeah, because they've worked hard to normalize all this shit. I mean, luckily a lot of people aren't buying it. Like we live in a world where a lot of people aren't buying it now. Thank God.
Yeah.
They're like the number of people that support Israel is below 50% in America for like the first time in decades and decades. And I think if you're under the age of 60, it's probably 70-80% don't believe Israel is doing right now as they just murder innocent people every single day of the week. Okay, well, speaking of Israel, we're going to get... Oh, actually, since we mentioned bombing hospitals, let's do this headline real quick. This is coming from Mint Press. The United States has just bombed a hospital in Yemen. Well, actually, it was 2 weeks ago, but I guess we're getting more information on it. The oncology hospital in Sada, Yemen, that turning it into rubble. At least 2 people were killed and 13 more injured. But this is not an isolated incident. In fact, in repeatedly targeting and destroying a cancer center in Yemen, the United States has carried on its long tradition of bombing hospitals. And Alan McLeod has a report on this. But this is the United States, I guess, really thankful that Israel has normalized the bombing of hospitals, and now we can go about bombing hospitals in Yemen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this last time I was here, so we don't have to go through the whole conversation again. But I truly do believe that, as obviously, and I'm not separating Israel here from U.S. empire. So when I say Israel here, I'm including the U.S. as part of it. But I really think with this whole, live streamed genocide, as people say, that we've mentally are somewhere new. Where these, like, you know what I mean? Like we've never seen this on our phones at this level before, and the gymnastics we have to do to go through our days. I do think we're at some new plateau of evil now.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. We haven't seen this before. I mean, people will say there's definitely been genocides before. I mean, millions of people have been murdered, and Native Americans, the Holocaust, etc. But it's just never been live streamed. You literally only had the information, especially if you weren't next door to it. You literally only had the information that was in the newspaper, and the newspapers were largely working, running propaganda for the U.S. State even back then. And most people have not covered this. I did a segment on government secrets, my podcast, Government Secrets, about how the New York Times during World War II barely mentioned, even though they had a Jewish publisher, but they barely mentioned the Holocaust, even when it was known, at least in inner circles in the U.S. government, they still barely mentioned the Holocaust. It was something like throughout the entire World War II, they mentioned it 6 times in the New York Times. And I think all but 2 of those didn't use the word Jews.
Yeah.
And this had to do...
so crazy to wrap my head around that fact.
Yeah. And this had to do with the fact that, yes, the publisher might have been Jewish, but they didn't want more immigrants coming in. They didn't care if they were Jewish or not. They viewed themselves as, this elite, really more of the ruling elite than as Jewish people. So, and again, this has to do with this group mentality of thinking, well, all Jews believe the same thing, and all Russians believe the same thing. And, the richest of the rich Jewish people in America were not going to, they were generally siding with the ruling elite in America, which want an influx of immigrants.
Yeah, and you could say that about the richest of the rich behind any ethnic background.
Yeah.
They know where they really are now, and it's not their they're the people of their ethnicity. They're
Yeah. So anyway, we're in a different time now where people can turn on their phones and see what's happening. And they tried to ban or almost succeeded in banning TikTok to try and cover this up. I was banned in 2 months of using TikTok because
yeah.
I was talking about this. So
And it's like
they're trying.
like there's like one or two options you could really go when everyone is seeing this on their phones like they haven't before, and it's either that this stuff is going to be stopped or it's going to be normalized. And so far we're seeing an effort for the second. And so like US, like us bombing a hospital in Yemen, I imagine if like we hadn't just spent the last year and a half watching our bombs fall in hospitals in Gaza, that maybe like it would be a little bit more outrageous to hear that we just bombed a hospital in Yemen. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah. No, and that's the normalization. That's pretty crazy. Okay, let's see here. Still on the topic of Israel, there's just and I mentioned this a little bit before, but there's continuing signs that they're getting ready for full scale occupation of Gaza, full scale ethnic cleansing. They continue to want to push everybody out of Gaza, either into Egypt or basically out to sea, because they think that if you can find a way to get them all out on boats, then African nations will be forced to take them. Israel controls more of Gaza than at any point during the war, meaning genocide, part of a plan that officials increasingly describe as leading to a full military occupation. Taking control of the Palestinian enclave for the first time in 2 decades would be a high-stakes gamble. It would risk increasing the death toll in Gaza, siphoning more reserve soldiers away from an economy stifled by war, and further isolating Israel. But that does seem to be their aim. And let's see, Chris Hedges was saying the same thing. Israel is about to empty Gaza. The Israeli government, backed by the Trump administration, is laying the groundwork for the full expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza, a move that has the potential to ignite a regional conflagration. And of course, they've been blocking food, they've been blocking aid, they've been blocking everything from getting into Gaza. Netanyahu just flew to the United States to meet with Trump again. It's always good to have the world's biggest war criminals. You like to keep them together, so you can keep an eye on them. It's good to have them all in one place.
It's good to have a buddy, and it's nice. It's nice to see friendship.
War criminal buddy. And this is while he has an arrest warrant out for him with the ICC. So really, the United States. Now, we never signed on to the ICC, but if we were a moral, rational country, we would have. The United States should have arrested him. And the airspaces that he goes across should also have arrested him. Like if he flew over Britain, they should arrest him. But, instead, we literally roll out the red carpet for him. Literally roll out the red carpet for this absolute lunatic committing genocide on a daily basis. And, Trump's sitting there high-fiving him. If you read the mainstream media, they go, well, he didn't get exactly what he wanted. Israel wanted to be let out of Trump's tariff war. Right. They has like 10% tariffs on Israel or something, or 17 or something. And that's why Netanyahu was there. He also wants Trump to bomb Iran without sitting down and speaking with them first, which the Trump administration says they're going to sit down and speak with Iran, but they also at the same time are threatening to bomb them at the same time. They're basically saying, like, if you don't agree to our deal, then we will begin bombing Iran. Now, many people have said that that's, Iran has a lot of cards to play. Iran can cut off trade. Iran can strike Israel, as they proved with that tit for tat a year ago when Iran, fired 300 projectiles at the Iron Dome, but most of them were cheap little drones, and the ones that got through, the whatever 10% that got through, were the hypersonic missiles. So they proved that if they want to, they can strike Tel Aviv. But at this point, I think Netanyahu wants that. I think he wants to have a full war against Iran, and even if a lot of Israel gets blown up, he'll get to go down in a blaze of glory. He's so unhinged. You can't pretend to predict what he's going to do.
I mean, literally, yeah. It is of course, we both need to push back against the narrative that this whole thing is because Netanyahu, because of the right-wing government.
True.
And of course, it's the project of Israel is at its core ethnic cleansing. But at the same time, Netanyahu is like a literal psychopath. It's like a maniac. It does, I agree with what you said. He does seem happy to just bring it all down.
Thank you, Philip, for donating YouTube memberships to some folks. That was really cool. Thank you for supporting the show. That is a great point. I don't want to fall into that trap of acting like this is Netanyahu's fault. This is,
but when you see him talk and he's saying the things about protecting Israel and the lighting hits them a certain way, I'm like, yo, is this the devil? This guy's
the lighting
terrifying. He seems crazy.
The lighting is well, the problem is it has to do with his childhood. He was raised American.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. I mean, he grew up mostly in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and he experienced the horrors of Philadelphia.
Philadelphia and other whatever town it was, Harrisburg or something, Pennsylvania. And then
central Pennsylvania.
And then went to MIT and then worked at Boston Consulting. And then, so the problem is that he's American, I think. That's really what did it. But yes, so the U.S. wants to hold talks with Iran. And let's call out the most hilarious aspect of this. We're going to fuck you up and you better not try and get nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons. So how about that? How about we start there? How about, okay, Iran opens their doors to inspections and so does Israel. Oh, Israel fucking doesn't want that. No, they do not want inspectors in their so-called non-existent nuclear warehouses. It is hilarious to watch Israel, Netanyahu, all of them, say any minute now, Iran's going to get the bomb. Meanwhile, Israel has had it for generations, and they are the only country on the planet where we don't talk about the fact that they have nuclear weapons. The U.S. government still kind of pretends they don't. I played the clip of Sam Husseini, my friend, the reporter at the State Department. He pretended it was a question on the JFK files, so she started to answer it. And then he shifted it around to say, why, are you willing to admit Israel has nuclear weapons? And then she wouldn't even say the words. She wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to answer that. She wouldn't even say the words nuclear weapons. She just talked about something else.
Damn. The Ninja Warrior obstacle course you got to go through just to ask our government a question, just to actually confront them with a question.
You don't realize how accurate you are, because the time before that, Sam Hussein was dragged out of there.
I remember that.
By security guards, and he ended up with a concussion from that.
Damn.
Yeah, I just wish that was the first talking point of anyone addressing the Iran nuclear talks. Step one is, okay, you can have nuclear talks as long as there's nuclear talks with everyone in the Middle East, including Israel. As long as every country, including Israel, comes forth and tells the truth about
it's actually an anti-Semitic trope that Israel has had a secret nuclear program for a long time, Lee. So you should really watch yourself there.
It's actually anti-Semitic to say the name Israel. Just pretend none of this is happening. Yeah, so it's laughable. Also, let's remember that Trump, in his first administration, was the one who ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. Literally got into office and in days ripped up the Iran nuclear deal that had started to somewhat ease tensions between Iran and the United States.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is laughable. I actually think that these talks are just a ruse so that Trump can say they failed and now we have to bomb them or something. But it's a tightrope that they're walking because, like I said, Iran is powerful. They're strong. They've got a large army. They can shut off trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz. And they can hit Israel. So for Trump to think he's just going to waltz in there, I mean, it's more insane than thinking they're going to just, waltz into Iraq and then Iraq will just fawn over them and become American. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
it is insane.
Let's see. So there is a couple of things I want to cover. Want to make sure to get to is because it happened. I didn't have a live stream on the weekend and everything. I haven't yet talked about the fact that the immigration judge has said that Mahmoud Khalil can be deported. And most of he is he is a legal resident and he led some of the protests at Colombia. And they have him in a prison in Louisiana. They specifically shipped him down to Louisiana like the moment they arrested him because they want a favorable judge, which they got. So now this judge is saying you can deport Mahmoud Khalil for thought crimes, for speaking. An immigration judge in Louisiana found the Trump administration could deport Mahmoud Khalil, granting the government an early victory in its efforts to crack down on pro-Palestinian demonstrations, which are just anti-genocide demonstrations. The ruling is far from the final word on whether Khalil, a Columbia University graduate and legal permanent resident, will be deported. His lawyers will continue their fight in Louisiana. The constitutional issues at the heart of the case will most likely get a fuller hearing in the federal court in New Jersey than they did in Louisiana on Friday. For the time being, the decision by the judge affirmed the extraordinary power of Marco Rubio to target any non-citizen for deportation.
Yeah, I mean, it's just shocking.
And as I covered, can't remember if it was last Friday, but a British citizen who had come to the U.S. like basically sightseeing and then went to Canada and had a visa, but it wasn't a work visa. So when she was coming from Canada back to the United States, as she was trying to get into Canada, I think they arrested her, put her in a deportation facility. And they said, oh, you'll just be in here a few days until we get you a flight back to Britain because you're not allowed to be in this country. And they kept her there for like 2 months.
Damn.
In a fucking prison. And this is a white person. This is a Brit.
Yeah. That's scary.
When they start coming after the whiteys, that's terrifying.
It is. Like, truly. I mean, did you see the story? Very absurd and obviously an infuriating story about the Venezuelan hairdresser.
Yes, actually, I did want to mention that, so you can go ahead and tell that.
Yeah, it's an openly gay Venezuelan hairdresser has been sent to that notorious gulag in El Salvador for allegedly being part of that giant Venezuelan prison gang, and that's why I bring up.
But the administration has admitted it's an accident, right?
No, this is a different case. This is a different case, and one that hasn't gotten as much coverage. But the reason why I bring up their sexual orientation is only because, like, if the American government I'm not a fan of racially profiling anyone. Look at me, I have a stake in being against racial profiling. But if they racial profile at the level they do, like in negative ways, at least let them can you sometimes racially profile in a positive, or just profile in a positive way? Like, all of our profiling assumptions would tell us that an openly gay hairdresser who's, again, openly gay is probably not a part of this notorious murderous gang. And
So
yeah,
you don't mean in a positive way. You mean in a more logical way.
in a way that gets you out of trouble instead of
Yeah,
only
yeah.
getting you in trouble. You know what I mean? A way like
Yeah.
maybe this person isn't in a gang. And I think USA Today, though, they did a story on this that touched on a lot of things. And one thing it also touched on was the person who, because they got their hands on all these documents, and the person who ultimately signed off their investigation that confirmed that he was part of a gang was a contractor for ICE that not only like 4 months prior had just resigned from the police because he was a disgraced liar and drunkenly crashed his car into a family's home. 4 months later gets a job as an ICE contractor. So not only is this guy a known liar who had to resign from the police, has no knowledge, has no background in determining who's in Venezuelan gangs, but also he's a contractor, which means that this person doesn't even technically work for our government, but he is signing off on who gets to be deported from our country. So is this yeah, I don't know if that's the one I'm talking about.
I think it is. I think this is the hairdresser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hairdresser.
Okay, yeah. So it's like the guy, one of the guys who signed off on this, very important in the chain to deport him, is a contractor. It's a private industry is now in charge of our deportation system.
Boy, I never heard of that going poorly when we put private companies in charge of things like deportation, killing people.
Yeah.
You know, Eric Prince always did a fine job, I think. So
Yeah, no notes for that guy.
no notes. Okay, so before I run out of time, I also want to talk about the possible election fraud that has just happened in Ecuador. Again, I'm going to read from the always excellent Ben Norton. Ben Norton says there's strong evidence of huge election fraud in Ecuador, which is ruled by a right-wing oligarch, President Daniel Noboa, who is closely linked to drug trafficking. Ecuadorians say he's a dictator. Noboa, a dual U.S. citizen, is the son of Ecuador's richest billionaire. Oh, so we've got the billionaire running we've got the world's richest person running the show in the U.S., and we've got the son of the richest person in Ecuador running the show. He's allowed the U.S. military to enter the country at any time for any reason. Noboa's oligarch family owns a banana exporting company that's notorious for trafficking cocaine, et cetera, et cetera. Highest murder rates on earth. Violent gangs taking over Ecuador.
God damn.
This close Trump ally has turned Ecuador into a banana republic. Exit polls showed that the left-wing Correísta, that's after Correa, like his movement, Correísta opposition candidate Luisa Gonzalez won the election by 4%. But Noboa's regime is absurdly claiming he won by over 10%. Boy, this sounds like something Trump might have done.
Mm-hmm.
This blatantly contradicts the polling done for months before the runoff of the election. Noboa's regime also ridiculously claims that people who voted for left-wing parties in the first round decided to vote for the right-wing Trump ally in the second round. So basically, it's kind of like if they had multiple rounds in the U.S. and you voted Green Party, and then in the final, the runoff, the only parties you could choose between were Democrat and Republican. All of a sudden, all the Green Party people picked Republican.
Yeah. It's like, I'm voting for the Jill Stein, Steve Bannon ticket, please.
It's completely illogical.
Yeah.
And so Ben Norton says there's no way he would have won their votes. The only logical explanation is fraud. Mere hours before the vote, Noboa declared a state of emergency, suspended civil rights in several provinces where the left wing was popular, deployed the military to intimidate the opposition, moved voting stations to new places, confusing voters, banned cell phones so people couldn't record how his regime was rigging the election. All of that was like the night of. Noboa also illegally used government resources to support his campaign and blocked many international observers and journalists. As if all that blatant wrongdoing weren't enough, many voting tallies submitted to Ecuador's Electoral Council don't have signatures and were very likely fabricated. but they claim Noboa won by a big margin. This is a textbook example of right-wing, drug-linked, U.S.-backed dictators stealing an election in broad daylight. And the U.S. government naturally supports it all.
Damn, I had no idea about that.
We
Son
love-
of a billionaire. At least we can rest easy here in the U.S. knowing that none of Elon Musk's 500 children will ever love him enough to follow in his footsteps. So at least we have that.
You mean his human shields that he carries around?
Yeah, goddamn.
Yeah, the U.S. loves this. We love when a right-wing dictator, right-wing lunatic rigs an election, and then we jump in and we say, "Yep, that's accurate. That's perfect. That's great."
Yeah.
And we do the reverse as well. Whenever Maduro, which the Venezuelan elections are far more legitimate than U.S. elections, but when Maduro wins his election, the U.S. jumps in the day after without any information and goes, "No, it was rigged. It was rigged. It was rigged."
Mm-hmm.
That's we have a long prestigious history of that.
Yeah. Welcome to the UN. Fuck. What was that guy's name? The guy we tried to make president of Venezuela multiple
Juan
times.
Guaido.
Yeah. Welcome
Yeah.
to the UN. Juan Guaido.
Yeah, I'm sure someone's put up that ongoing meme. Juan Guaido has just declared himself the president of Ecuador.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm sure that's out there.
Yeah.
It's got to be. All right, I just a couple more things before we wrap up. Trump is trying to purge all. It's all history of the United States that reminds us that we are a racist colonial experiment.
Yeah.
His latest thing, of course, he's gone after any DEI anything, but he's also. Oh yeah, did I cover it on this show that they accidentally, in their efforts to go after any DEI thing, they basically did some sort of search, like a control F in government databases for the word black, because they wanted to like purge anything that says, we're looking to hire more, diverse people. And so in doing so, they accidentally revealed a CIA black site.
Oh my God, dude.
I love dumb autocrats.
Yeah, like get it together. Like if we're gonna get to fascism, at least get us there efficiently. Like
I love dumb fashion. I had I said idiots, idiot psychopaths. So idiopathy or something. I think
yeah,
a lot of idiopathy. Anyway, he's now setting his sights on the National African American History Museum, and he basically wants to shut it down because, of course, his claims is that it's all lies. Which what it does is it reveals a lot of the true history of slavery in the United States.
Yeah,
but here's the irony of this. Is these things, I'm not saying don't do them. Like there should be an African American History Museum. There should be all of these efforts to remind us of our history as a genocidal, racist country. But where we see these things, like African American History Museum, they are less than Band-Aids. They are little, it's like stabbing someone and giving them a Tic Tac to make it feel better. It is generations of racism. There's no reparations. There's no we're going to fix society for you. Society is still breathtakingly racist and with systemic racism. And instead we give a museum and we say, well, we're willing to show some people the history. And Trump wants to knock the Tic Tacs out of people's hands.
Exactly.
Out of the people he just stabbed. And ironically, these things are often release valves. They often they don't he thinks he's helping defend a white supremacist America, but a lot of the things he's doing are the things that ultimately lead to revolution. Is when people don't even get these little release valves.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to attack when we don't offer anything real. Like you could, I mean, you could kind of say that for DEI or affirmative action at large, right? Like the real justice or attempt at justice to Black people in America would be reparations, right? And reparations is very logical. Any person in the world, if you steal $10 from them, they're gonna want the $10 back, right? They're gonna
Right,
want
and
the
it's
they're gonna
kind of the least the society could do in a society that continues. This is not just about slavery. Slavery continues to be racist at its core. Like, you're less likely to get a job if you are not white. It is, studies have shown this again and again and again. So it's like the least a society could do. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're totally fine. I mean, and you're exactly right. But what I was saying is that in absence of that, like totally logical, rational thing of reparations, we don't have that. So what do we have? Well, okay, we'll try like affirmative action, which is a lot less rooted in just like reason and logic. It's more of like a, okay, we'll like meet you halfway, and here's like this kind of like absurd thing where it has to do with like jobs and colleges and applications. And because it's not the true reparations, and it's this kind of absurd side little thing that doesn't quite make as much sense, it's easier to poke holes at. It's easier to be like, well, this is silly because of A, B, and C, and then we end up not even getting that because now the right is attacking that. And rather than going at the root of it, we instead go off to the side, and then that side thing is an easy target. You know what I mean? Like, at least rhetorically.
Another example would be Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill.
That's a great example. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'd rather have Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill than like Andrew Jackson.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I don't know that she wants to be the face of capitalism. I don't know that she wants to be the face of the U.S. empire.
Yeah.
But on top of that, Trump gets into office and says, absolutely not. There's no Harriet Tubman on my goddamn 20, and stops it from happening. But what was it to begin with?
Exactly.
Like,
and we're all like, oh man, we were so close to equality. Damn it. Now we don't get to have that.
Yeah. It really would have fixed everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect example. Yeah.
And one more story here. Trump, this is a great, how did it start? How did it going? How's it going? Or if you're illiterate, how did it start? How did it going? Trump initially, when Elon Musk and Doge were ripping everything up, firing everyone, not that they don't continue to, but Trump made some side comment about, I think we could decrease the military budget too, probably get it to like 50% of what it is now. And then there was another comment of Pete Hegseth saying, I think we'll be able to decrease it 8% a year, except then he equivocated and goes, or at least move some of that money around. Well, that's not decreasing it. That's just moving it around.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's how it's going. Trump and Hegseth have promised a $1 trillion Pentagon budget, the largest ever.
Yeah. Why not?
That's how it's going. And there was
why the fuck not at this point?
Yeah, why not? This is a headline of how it started. Defense stocks drop after Trump says Pentagon spending could be halved. Which is hilarious. Like if I were willing to play the parasitic Wall Street stock market, I would. The moment he said that, I would have invested in those contractors, because you knew he was never going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You knew he was not going to cut the Pentagon budget.
If there's anything you know is going to go back up, it's defense stocks. So yeah, if you get an opportunity to buy low for missiles and bombs, then yeah, I guess take that.
Well, especially as long as the U.S. runs things, it'll definitely keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
But it is tough to fathom what $1 trillion is. I've covered how much it is. I've covered the waste, massive waste and fraud at the Pentagon. I've covered many times the trillions of dollars in unaccounted for financial adjustments. The fact that the Pentagon has admitted that they literally can't account for 63% of all of their assets. 63%. The fact that they failed their 7 audits in a row, which are the only audits they've ever had, so they've never technically audited. They literally fucking don't know where the money is, where the things are, where the people are. Literally, Defense Secretary Gates had said he couldn't figure out how many people worked in a department. They don't even know who fucking works there. Like, it is just trillions of dollars dumped down a black hole that ends up in the pockets of fucking lunatics who are billionaires. That is what it is. And yet,
a money laundering operation.
It's the I've often called it the world's largest money laundering operation in human history.
Hmm.
Ever. $1 trillion is unfathomable amount of money. It's I can't remember. I wrote it in a recent article on my Substack, which people can check out. But it's like if you had a stack of dollar bills and they were $1,000 bills, so every dollar in the stack is $1,000. To get $1 trillion, it'd be like 63 miles high.
Wow. Yeah.
It would like go out to the International Space Station and back.
And it just sucks that it turned out this way. That the way that the rich launder their money is through war. Like, wouldn't it be better if it was like through like Chuck E. Cheese's or something, and they were just like building these ballparks, these like ball pits for kids to play in, like all over the world, all over the Middle East, and it was just really just funneling money to the really rich, which is evil. But at least it's like, okay, like how ball pits are in Yemen. Okay, yeah.
I like that. If they had just invested all the money in Chuck E. Cheese, and you have to, yeah, you're still money laundering. So most of the money is not being used in the Chuck E. Cheese, but a certain percentage would be used to make the Chuck E. Cheese better.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it'd be like these epic Chuck E. Cheeses everywhere. And
Yeah.
then like the other 90% of the trillions would go out the back door to the
Yeah. Well,
to the
it would
rich.
be like our F-15s or whatever, like each one is like worth like $1 trillion and they suck. It would be like that. It would be like, the skee ball machine costs $1 trillion and you can barely even play skee ball on it. It's just mostly just sitting there. Who knows where that money's really going? And they're like, well, at least we get to play skee ball. It could be worse.
On the last Unredacted Tonight, I said the U.S. electoral system has less accountability than that arcade game with the claw that comes down and tries to pick up the stuffed animal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an arthritic old lady trying to pick up a bowling ball.
Yeah. And then Trump's like, we got to get rid of that claw. That claw is ruining everything. It's ruining my life. We got to get rid of it.
I'm removing all claw games. They're all done for.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more little. I'm gonna show a little 1 minute, 2 minute segment of Unredacted Tonight to everybody. But before I do that, I can let you head out, Jaffer, so you don't have to hang around. Let everybody know where they can follow your stuff.
Oh, please check out my new podcast. It's covering just police news in America. There's a lot more than you might even think, being an anti-police person, and we try to make it funnier than you might think it would be either. It's called Cops the Podcast, KAWPS. I'm very proud of it. Check it out. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for having me, Lee, and thanks everyone for listening.
I appreciate being here, man. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right, everybody. I want to play just a quick clip that has been doing better from Unredacted Tonight. I think it's from an episode a couple of weeks ago where I tore apart Ben Shapiro for his garbage Israel takes. And as most of you know, I have a ridiculously suppressed channel. My YouTube channel and everything is like horribly depressed. But this video is doing a little better. It's got 35,000 views so far. And so I'd love for you to check it out. I'd love for you to check out all of Unredacted Tonight. If you haven't yet looked at Unredacted Tonight, the entire playlist is at leecamp.com/unredacted. That takes you to the YouTube. So leecamp.com/unredacted will take you straight to the entire Unredacted Night playlist. Unredacted Night it only exists because of you. It only exists if you guys support it, share it, let people know, all that good stuff. It's completely independent now. This is not connected to any other companies. And I'd love for you guys to keep it going. So I hope you'll go to leecamp.com/unredacted. We have a new episode this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It airs. You can watch it anytime, though. And we will not have an episode of Unredacted the following week because we're taking 1 week off. But I will still be here with the live stream, so I won't be completely MIA the following week. But anyway, new episode on Friday. And so yeah, I'm gonna play that clip. I will come back afterwards and say goodbye. And say goodbye, and that I love you and that I miss you and all that good stuff. But here's a little bit of the clip on on your love and mine, Ben Shapiro. Please welcome to the show, spokesperson for the Donald Trump Bootlicker Fan Club and proudly celebrating his bar mitzvah in just a few short days, Ben Shapiro. We all know he's brilliant. In fact, I call him Ben Shap Hero because he is a hero, which if you're not careful sounds like Ben Shat Hero. And in a way, that's true as well. He's the hero of bullshit. Ben, tell us about Trump's plan for Gaza.
All of the conventional wisdom, all of the State Department approved conventional wisdom for decades has led to full-scale disaster in the Middle East. It has led to an intractable, multi-decade problem of a radicalized Palestinian population that supports terrorism rather than any regime that would actually allow for peace, prosperity, and the building of a livable life.
Yes, thank you for finally saying it. Palestinians are radicals for all of that living there they've been doing, while the IDF, which has directly killed over 48,000 people over the past 18 months, are the calm, rational, normal folks. They're so chill. They're like listening to Simon and Garfunkel wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot cocoa. Not radical at all. If mass murder of women and children in the tens of thousands, assassinating journalists, bombing every hospital on the map, and torturing UN employees is considered radical, I guess we're all radical. I mean, who hasn't done those things? Okay, so there's a lot more to it than that, but I hope you will check it out. That's just a little clip from Unredacted tonight. Check it out, leakcamp.com/unredacted. But if you want to support this show, I am giving away more free stuff to join up for $6 a month than I have ever given away. If you the moment you join up at either leakcamp.net, my locals page, or patreon.com/leakcamp, I'm giving you both my ebooks, Dangerous Ideas and Bullet Points and Punchlines. I'm giving you all 3 of my Zoom comedy specials that are not available anywhere else. And you, of course, get all of the exclusive segments that you would have gotten anyway. Exclusive interviews. I recently did exclusive interviews with Peter Joseph, Chris Hedges, all of that. If you just head over to leakcamp.net and join up, become a paying subscriber, or patreon.com/leakcamp. All right, you guys are the best. I will see you. I think I'm going to do a live stream Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so I will see you then. And new Unredacted coming up on Thursday. And yeah, keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha.